Governor George W. Bush announced that he's forming an exploratory committee to raise money and measure support for a possible run for president. He and his wife Laura spoke with reporters in Austin for about a half hour.
I want to thank you all for being here. I wanted the Texas press, and therefore my fellow Texans, to hear it from me first, that this coming Sunday I'm going to announce the formation of Exploratory Committee to determine whether or not I should seek the presidency. I will set up an exploratory committee to begin raising funds and more formally explore the prospect of running for president. Those of you who cover me every day know that I don't make this decision lightly. I've carefully considered its ramifications. I've talked to Laura and Barbara and Jenna. I've discussed the idea with many of my friends and members of my staff. I've been encouraged by the outpouring of support from fellow elected officials and party leaders all across our country, many of whom, as you know, have made the long trip to Austin, Texas. With the level of activity and an interest increasing, I feel it is important to put in place a formal federal committee that will help me fully comply with the spirit and the letter of the law. I see two phases to the Exploratory Committee. My primary focus for the next months will be the legislative session, and the first phase of the Exploratory Committee will primarily be fundraising, which come Sunday I will authorize my friends all across America to begin. The second phase will take place this summer, after the legislative session, when Laura and I will begin to do some traveling around the country to meet with people, to listen to their concerns, and explore on our own the prospects of becoming a formal candidate. I've said all along the biggest hesitation is the impact on my family. I have talked a lot with Laura and the girls, and while there are some natural concerns about the potentially major change in our life, I am convinced, and Laura is convinced, that our love for each other is strong enough and our family's close enough to take whatever life brings. We've discussed some ways to try to keep a normal family life. I'm committed to making sure I spend quality time with Laura and the girls. I do have a compelling reason to consider running for president. I want the 21st century to be prosperous, and I don't want anybody being left behind. I want prosperity to mean something for everybody in America. America must be prosperous and strong to make sure the next century is a peaceful one. America must be prosperous so that anybody who wants to work can find a high-quality, high-paying job. America must be prosperous so people can realize their entrepreneurial dreams. America must be open so that every citizen knows the promise of America. An American must be educated so that all our citizens can realize the American dream. Those of you who've covered me for a long time know that I'm also committed to help ushering in the responsibility era, an era in which each and every person in this great land understands they're responsible for the decisions they make, responsible for the children they bring into this world, that each of us are responsible for loving our neighbor like we'd like to be loved ourselves. A responsibility era in which corporate America understands that they're responsible for the employees and responsible for the clean air and clean water of America. Those are the reasons I've decided to take the next step to explore the possibility of seeking the presidency. On Sunday, this coming Sunday, I will have a formal news conference to announce exactly what I've told you here. I will discuss more details about the structure of the committee and the plans we may have. I'll be glad to answer any questions you have at this time. Okay, no.
Governor, what about the timetable now for actually making up your mind on the final decision?
I don't have a I don't have a formal date in mind yet. I do know that first things first, I'm going to start raising money to determine whether or not there is an interest beyond just people coming to Austin. I've got to finish the legislative session. I've told you all numerous times that I'm going to stay home, fight for the tax cuts, fight for a bill to make sure we have social promotion, to end social promotion, and do my job as governor. And then I will begin to travel around the nation and to listen to people. So the exploration process is going to take a while for me to before I formally declare. David. I mean Mike. Or the other David.
If the family issue is now resolved, what else is there for you to consider in this process?
Well, to determine the actual size of the movement, to determine whether or not people really do want me to run for the presidency. It's one thing to have all the interest in people flying down. The next step is to determine whether I can raise money, and that's what we're going to start doing.
Governor, as you listen to people tell you whether they want you to run, what will you tell people about why you should run and what kind of alternative you'll offer to the other crowded field of GOP candidates?
Well, I of course will lay out a vision for what I think is right for America should I decide to run, and you just heard the beginnings of it. I'll have a plan to encourage prosperity, but I want to make sure prosperity is for everybody, not a handful. I want prosperity to spread its wings all across America. I don't want anybody left behind, and so that'll be part of the vision I talk about.
Governor,
there's been a number of polls done in the last couple of months showing that you are indeed the front runner for the Republican nomination. As part of your exploratory committee, do you plan to do any polling?
I don't think so. It seems like we got more polls than we need. What I'm going to do as part of exploring is to make sure that those polls are more than just the fact that I've got a famous mother and I'm from a big state.
Governor, how much money do you think you need?
I have an idea about what would be the ideal amount of money, but it's going to be enough. It'll have to be enough to make sure that we can get out of Texas and get to the early states and to be able to endure on March the 7th.
Any decision on matching money yet?
No, it's too early on all that business. On the matching money. Sí, ¿qué quieres decir?
Today, because of Pat Buchanan in New Hampshire.
Unbeknownst to me, Karen Hughes, the most able press secretary in America, chose this day because of Texas Independence Day. So after this press conference, we'll have a rousing happy birthday to Texas. Hoy es un día muy importante para mí y mi familia porque este es una step para decidir si voy a correr para el presidente de los Estados Unidos. Yes, sir.
Can you discuss a little more how a possible run could affect your family, and perhaps the First Lady could respond to that question?
Why don't we let her respond to it?
Well, everyone knows, I think, that I was hesitant about this. This is just one step, obviously, just the first step. But what I was hesitant about is the ugliness that we all see of political life. George and I lived through a 1992 election with his dad. It was a very miserable year for us, and I dread criticism of my husband. On the other hand, I love George, and I'm very proud of him, and I know he'd make a great president.
Is there any advice that your mother-in-law has given you about making this country international?
No.
Don't dye your hair.
Barbara Bush is a great mother-in-law. She doesn't give her daughter-in-laws a lot of advice.
Governor, what about your family? You're very close to your parents. How much are you going to ask them to campaign for you and your brother, Joe?
Well, we'll put Mother out there out front first. Listen, my family, we're a very close family. And I suspect should I decide to move forward, it's a huge benefit to have your little brother as the governor of Florida. That's why I was nice to him all those years. But I hope to have my family out front. Listen, obviously I'm going to have to carry the message. I'm going to have to lay out the vision. One of the things you learn as the governor of a big state is how to lead. It's important to see a better tomorrow, and it's important to be able to explain the better tomorrow so everybody can understand it. It's important to know the principles by which decisions will be made and lay out those principles. And it's important in order to lead to be able to unite people. You can't lead by dividing people into camps. You unite people around common principles for the greater good. And it's going to be important for me if I decide to run to be able to lay out the message. But it's also important to have friends and family willing to go out and campaign on my behalf as well.
Governor, when did you make this President Clinton's tenure as president, and how would your administration differ from his?
I'll let the historians judge President Clinton. I'll let the historians make that judgment. I intend to conduct myself in office the way I have here in the state of Texas, to bring dignity and honor to the office.
Who is on the committee and how many people are on this exploratory committee?
Come Sunday.
How are your parents?
Sorry. My parents will love me either way, and they have said do what you think is right.
Governor, when did you actually reach this decision? Any advice from your father?
Not really. He just said go out and be yourself. Pardon me?
Fear of any skeletons?
No. Had there been skeletons that would have destroyed a candidacy, you'd have found them in 1994 and 1998.
Mr. Governor, some of the other Republicans are saying that your indecision is hurting their chances, Dan Quayle in particular. How do you feel about that?
I make up my mind based upon what I think is right. And I've got a job to do here in the state of Texas. I told my fellow Texans I may or may not decide to seek the presidency during the course of the last campaign, but I made them this promise that I'd do my job, that I'd stay home and be the governor they expected me to be. And so I've got a timetable that I think is right for Texas. And right for me is, Walt.
How do you expect to use the internet, or do you expect to have a website?
I do. As a matter of fact, I think this campaign, or this year 2000, is going to be on the cutting edge of using the new technologies to do a couple of things. One is to be able to communicate within the course of a campaign. As we set up organizations around the country, should I decide to do so, the capacity to dialogue back and forth within our political organization or amongst our policy groups around the nation are going to be much more expeditious, much more efficient. I can envision being on an airplane getting ready to fly somewhere, and we get wind that a question is going to be asked about a very complex subject, and we'll seek out our expert on that particular subject, email back and forth, come across the internet with the plan and with the talking points. Secondly, I do believe we're going to be able to communicate with voters in a much more different way, and we intend to use our intranet system and our own web page to do exactly that.
Do you know your address yet? Or?
Yes, we do. Check with me later. I think Elizabeth Dole is a fine person, and I'm glad she's in the race. I think it's instructive to America that the first viable female presidential candidate is a Republican.
What do you think about Pat Buchanan? What about Pat Buchanan?
I look forward to seeing all these people should I decide to run. We may have a few differences here and there, but the kind of campaigns I run should be illustrative of the kind of campaign I will run should I choose to run, which is above board, positive, energetic, talking about why I believe my plan for America will be good for everybody. You see, I want to repeat to you, I don't want anybody left behind in the 21st century. And it's important for people to hear that message.
What possibly, at this juncture, this committee what could that committee possibly come up with that would keep you out of it?
No fun, right?
Yeah. A giant thud. You know? A huge yawn. That it turned out it was my mother they were interested in. No, it's
How do you balance compassion? Elizabeth Dole, since she quit the Red Cross to consider...
I did see her. I saw her in Washington at one of the 2 trips that I have decided to take out of the state. And I, actually 3 since I went over to see the governor of Louisiana. But I did, and I congratulated her for a good start in the campaign. And she's a friend. I've campaigned with her before. I like her. She brings a lot of dignity to the process, and I congratulate her, Dave.
Governor, how do you balance compassion and conservatism in your mind?
Well, I think it is conservative to cut taxes. I know it's compassionate to give people more money to spend. I believe it is conservative to insist upon high standards and results and to trust local people to make the right decisions for schools. In my judgment, it is compassionate never to move a child through the system who hadn't learned to read yet. It's compassionate to make sure every child gets extra help, to make sure nobody gets left behind. I believe it's conservative to say in the Juvenile Justice Code there will be bad consequences for bad behavior. It's compassionate to link discipline and love. It's compassionate to say to some young person, we care for you enough to make sure you understand that discipline and love go hand in hand.
Governor, when did you just know that you wanted to run for president? What was that?
Well, I just knew that I wanted to set up an exploratory committee shortly after the inauguration speech.
Governor, do you want...
Well, because I began to get more comfortable with the idea, and it's a hard decision to make, and I began to feel comfortable inside. I began to get a sense of a peace inside my soul and in my heart, and I began to think seriously about setting up the exploratory committee.
What does Governor Bush? Governor Bush.
Yes. It's a hard to answer question.
I was going to say, what does it feel like on a personal level to think you might run for the presidency and win?
It is to put it in the vernacular of 17-year-old twins, it's awesome to think about it. This is a big job. It's an important job. And it's, I've come to realize in order to be the governor of a big state that I'm going to have good, smart people joining me. I've also believed that an administration can change the tone. I believe an administration full of decent, hard-working, honest folks can help change the tone of America. But this would be a huge responsibility. And I'm awed by the thought and humbled by the opportunity should I decide to go forward.
How are the girls doing? The Hispanic community as a key issue if you decide to run?
Los hispanos aquí en Texas y también los otros estados son muy importantes para mi elección. It is important for me to make sure that the Hispanic community and any community, the African American community, hears that message that prosperity must be applied to everybody, that everybody's got a shot at los sueños americanos aquí en este país. Yeah.
5 or 6 accomplishments here in Texas do you run on?
5 or 6? Okay, yeah. I've done in office what I said I would do, that I'm a uniter, not a divider, that I know how to lead, I can set an agenda, that I make decisions based upon principle. I believe our education plan that we enacted in 1995, and I say our education plan, it's not one person's plan. It is the plan of a lot of decent people who came together to put a system in place that's right for Texas, that says we believe in high standards, high expectations, and that we measure. We measure to find out whether or not children are learning, and if they're not learning, we're going to get them extra help. I think if I can get the social promotion bill that Senator Bivens worked on out of the House through the conference committee and sign it, it'll be a strong message that in our state we refuse to leave any child behind. I believe our juvenile justice reforms are some of the best in the nation. Not only have we enacted new law that says to people there will be consequences if you break the law, we've got progressive sanctions. We've got a near seamless system that goes from normal classroom settings to alternative schools, to JJAP facilities, to boot camps, to juvenile detention facilities. I believe our welfare laws are unique in the country because we recognize that government can hand out money, but government cannot put a sense of purpose in people's lives. That's why we pass faith-based initiatives to encourage faith-based institutions to be integrally involved in the compassionate delivery of welfare and hope. I believe our tort laws, the tort reform laws in the state of Texas, are laws that are important for America to hear, that we understand frivolous and junk lawsuits threaten entrepreneurs and producers. I believe Texas is entrepreneurial heaven. I believe this is a great place for people to realize their dreams. So there's 6.5 reasons.
Washington that you need to bring to Washington, Governor, or you might need to bring to Washington.
I will talk about Washington and what's happening in Washington and the agenda at the appropriate time. First things first, which is to get the exploratory committee started, begin to explore myself after the session. But my mind and focus for the next 3 months, or however many months it's going to be, is to get out of this legislative session with a positive agenda that's good for Texas. An agenda that speaks to the future of our great state. Look, we're going into the 21st century, and we got a chance to do some positive things for all the people of Texas, and that's where I'll be staying focused.
Governor, are you going to...
Slater.
On fundraising. On fundraising, can I ask you about, you have some very...
Do we have a mirror so I can, like...
You have some very successful fundraisers on your team.
I do.
And
that's good news.
Can we expect within a week of your announcement on Sunday that they will be announcing they've raised $20 million or more?
They're not that successful. First, let me answer your question. I'd rather have successful fundraisers on my team than unsuccessful fundraisers on my team. Secondly, no, I think it's going to take a while to crank up our organization. Unlike state politics, it's $1,000 at a time. And that's a lot of $1,000 to be competitive. And so we'll see how we do. But I've got a great group of friends who've agreed to step up and help. Part of, obviously, I wouldn't feel comfortable with moving forward if my friends weren't enthusiastically for the prospect.
How much do you already have planned?
I think, well, are you in?
Can I get?
Yeah, you do. 2,000.
Which daughter isn't born?
Yeah, that's right.
Will you stay in the state?
Yeah, I intend to stay in the state. If I choose to leave, I'll let you know, and I'll let you know why. As you know, I've been above board with my plans. I recently was invited by the governor of Louisiana to go over there. I did, and we immediately picked up the phone and notified the folks who generally watch my every move. And if you didn't get notified, I'm sorry, but
do you not have to leave to raise money? Will it all come to you?
Well, I'm going to have to raise money without leaving. That's my pledge to Texas. I'm going to do my job as the governor. I don't want Representative Wilson or Representative DeLisi, who may have a problem, to come by my office and say, I've got a problem with what's going on. They say, I'm sorry, he's in Des Moines. And I need to be here. Now, one of these days, I'm going to be in Des Moines and around, but I've got to do my job. I hope the people of Iowa and New Hampshire and America understand that I was elected to do a job, and I intend to do my job. And
do you think you ruffled any feathers by excluding the national media?
I'm sure we did ruffle feathers by excluding the national media. I respect the national media, but I hope the national media respects my desire to fulfill a promise I made to the Texas Press Corps, that I understand where I'm from, I understand what my job is, and I promised you all that I would brief the Texas press and therefore the Texas people first and foremost, and I fulfilled the promise. I know there's some fellows that came to the gate wanting to come in and hear this press conference, and I'm sorry they traveled this far to do so, but I respect the Texas press. The Texas press has been a part of my political life, and it's the right thing to do, the way we've handled this.
Hey, Governor, are you concerned that you might not be conservative enough for some folks who view you as too moderate?
I expect I'm not going to appeal to all the people all the time. The only thing I know to do is to lay out a vision that I believe is better for the country, to articulate the principles by which I'll make decisions, and convince people I can lead. I've got a record. It's a good, solid record, and people can analyze it and like it or not like it. I've come to this conclusion. I don't fear failure. I really don't. If things don't work out, should I decide to run and things don't work out, that's just the way it goes. And if things do work out, I don't fear success either. Yes, Alan?
Where are you going to announce Sunday, and if you were invited to appear on one of the national morning talk shows?
Yes, the answer is no, and I'm not sure. In reverse order. I'm not sure where we're going to have this yet. And the reason why is that, first of all, as you can see, there seems to be some interest. Imagine if we let 49 other states in, or as we say, the National Press Corps. So we're determining where we can find a place big enough. And no, I will not be on any national talk shows this weekend. Pardon me?
Is it timed at all I mean, because that's a day when political people look at TV in the morning.
Not really. It'll be after all the... I suspect it's going to be in the afternoon. We want to give you all time to go to your respective houses of worship.
So we'll be in Texas?
Right?
You'll be here in Austin.
Yeah, that's right.
Governor,
That's going to be here. We'll find a place.
Governor, follow up on that conservative question asked earlier. Is the state of the Republican Party such today that in order to get the nomination, you have to toe one line, and in order to get elected, you have to toe another?
That's not the way I do business. If you follow me in Texas, you know that I set an agenda, I articulate the principles by which decisions will be made, and I lead. And that's exactly the way I intend to be a candidate. That's the only thing I know to do, is to be myself today, and be the same way tomorrow. I think that's what America wants to see. I think America wants to see somebody who knows how to lead, who will base decisions on principles. I know the world likes to put labels on everybody. All I got to do, all I think I need to do is to lay out my vision, the principles by which I'll make decisions, and my record. And it's a good record. Listen, I want to thank you all very much. I hope this isn't it. I hope you come Sunday.
Mrs. Bush, your life is going to change dramatically over the next few months. Are you prepared for that?
I'm prepared for it. I'm prepared for it. I know what it'll be like. I've been in a couple of presidential races before. Not as the wife of the candidate, but I'm prepared, and I know what it'll be like. Looking forward to it.
Okay, now, no. Take some wires off, Kevin. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Attach it to here. Right off. Okay. It's the new discipline, George.
Just one second, I'll be right back. Just walking out. Gotta talk to you about that.
What? You the doghouse.
Join us this weekend for Road to the White House 2000, our weekly look at the people and